Today in Locked On Red Wings. Yep.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. We'd rather be anywhere but here right now, recapping this hockey game. Scotty's host over at Locked On Tigers, as well as a freelance journalist for the Detroit News, and I am a color commentator for the Oakland University ACHA D1 hockey team. Scotty, Red Wings played the New York Rangers again on Thursday after having played them in New York on Monday, and the more things change, the more they stay the same. Score was slightly different, but still lost by 3, losing 5-3 at LCA, and in much of the same fashion as we saw on Monday. The main difference here is I don't believe the Red Wings got goalied in this game. I just thought that they made more mistakes, but again, in much of the same fashion.
Yeah, this was a bleep show, man. This was not good. And it's frustrating because they had the momentum early, right? Like early in this hockey game that was really close for the first few minutes. Then you get a power play. Then you get a 5-on-3, and you have an open net twice on the 5-on-3 and can't convert either time. Obviously, the first one, wide open net for DeBrincat. And that's another, the more things change, the more they stay the same. That was something that he struggled with last season as well. Just really frustrating. You somehow don't score in that whole sequence, that whole 2-3 minutes of having an advantage there. And then immediately, almost, after you're back to even strength, New York scores a goal, and really the game never looked back at that moment. From then on out, it was pretty much all Rangers until the very end of the game, I guess, when the Wings had a little bit of a rush and tilted ice, and we're just playing desperate hockey against the Rangers' fourth line.
Yeah, I would venture to guess that that's probably your difference maker for this hockey game is the special teams in this situation, because you mentioned the power play. The penalty kill wasn't that much better. I think both of them were pretty rough. Yeah, not that much better is an understatement. I feel like both of them can pretty easily be classified as difference makers. Yeah, man, this was not good. Like I don't know, really know what else to say. This was really not a very good hockey game for the Red Wings. There's so many different facets of this team that look awful at the moment. Right. And I'm trying my best, because I know in the past I've created an image of myself of someone who can be reactionary after games because I get overly emotional, which is part of what I love about, I have a lot of passion for the game, so I let myself feel my emotions. But sometimes I overstate or are hyperbolic over the situation, so I'm trying really hard to stay neutral. I got fired up earlier and was texting some friends, and so I got a lot of it out of my system, which I think helped. But this is just unacceptable, these results. I understand, Monday's game, we talked about it at 5-on-5, they were the better team. It was a couple lost faceoffs, a couple bad goals, and, special teams killed them. But the same happened in this game. They were a little less good at 5-on-5, but still had the overall edge. But boy, it didn't result in goals because the special teams, Cat, and it's not all Cat's fault. I'm not trying to say if Cat converts, we win this hockey game, but it certainly gets you off on the right foot, and now it puts it on the New York Rangers to respond. Instead, he misses a wide open net, which, like you said, more of the same we saw to DeBrincat, and I don't want to just you got to start hitting the net. He would have had 40 freaking goals last year if he would have hit the net on his one-timer. How do you shoot it through the mouth of the net with a wide open net a foot in front of you? It was mind-boggling. And then, like you said, power play expired. They came down the ice and they scored backdoor. They allowed 2 back-to-back penalty kill goals, short power play goals for New York. You were on the penalty kill, which just was incredibly frustrating because they were just picking apart the Detroit Red Wings
power play or penalty kill time and time again. Panarin's first goal, they're playing a diamond in the defensive zone. They shuffle along the blue line. They pass it back to Panarin. Panarin skates between Larkin, who's trying to back check now, and Sherratt, who goes to block, but when he goes down to one knee, he moves away from the shooting lane.
I literally texted you and I said, what is Sherratt doing there, dude? That accomplished nothing. That was one of the I don't want to say worst, but because that's not the emotion I'm trying to articulate here, but that was one of the least effective shot attempts I have ever seen. Like he literally went down on one knee and turned his body and got ready and then just kept going. It's like a cartoon. He just kept skating and then he's like, all right, well, I'm just gonna shoot. It was remarkable. You mentioned Panarin. That's going to be my difference maker. We're gonna go with two kind of layups here, and one is the guy that had the hat trick, and the other one is going to be just special teams as a whole, which was honestly you want to talk about literally a difference maker. The special teams in this game, power play and penalty kill for the Wings, you could argue is single-handedly why they lost. Now, single-handedly, that's a lot of shifts. There was a lot of penalties. They were on the PK a lot, etc. But those two units pretty much is the reason that this was as lopsided of a score as it was.
The Vincent Trocheck and Artemi Panarin combo was lethal in this game. And Artemi Panarin was fourth in the league last year in overall points, so 120. Which, by the way, it's insane that 120 points is only fourth in the league, but that's the modern day NHL.
Right. Experienced McDavid hockey.
Right. He had 3 goals and 1 assist. Trocheck had 1 goal and 3 assists, and they just combined. They tore the Red Wings apart. Trocheck had one of the power play goals that was a deflection from an Artemi Panarin shot, and then Artemi Panarin finished his hat trick just moments later with another slam the door backdoor goal. It's just the inability to push the guy out from in front of the goaltender on the power play or the penalty kill, clear the net front. And that was another one. Sherratt, Trocheck's sitting there. I'm going to back up from the mic here, so I'm going to have to speak up. Not one of my strong suits is talking loudly. Trocheck's 10 feet in front of the net, just holding his stick up like this. Just holding it.
Great example.
Sherratt's just watching him. I'm like, what are you doing, dude? You got to get up to the guy and push him out of the way. You can't just let him sit there. And then bing, bang, boom, he deflected it. And it's just it was the most infuriating game. The special teams have been the biggest weakness of this team to start the season, which is mind-boggling because last year they had the 9th best power play and a top 15 penalty kill. I think the penalty kill was 11th. So it's mind-boggling that they could start the year this slow. And I know we expected some regression on the shooting percentage. They had some good puck luck with the puck last year on power play at 5-on-5, and that did a lot of the heavy lifting for their offense. But this is crazy because it's like that stretch when they lost 7 games last year where you're like, okay, I always knew the team wasn't as good as they were when they won 6 games straight, but they're also not as bad as they're playing. Their shooting percentage isn't going to regress this much. Their puck luck isn't this bad. Water will find its level, but it's incredibly infuriating that where is your top 6? I'm rambling. It's a stream of consciousness. I got to focus, but where's Raymond? Where's Kane? Where's DeBrincat? I know DeBrincat scored 2 in the home opener, but where's Tarasenko?
Larkin scored not even in the top 6 this game.
Right.
I legitimately, there is a serious conversation to be had for, I think, literally every aspect of this team. Top 6, not producing like we need them to. Depth scoring, non-existent. Blue line, an absolute, utter atrocity. Goaltending, copy and paste. I'm not kidding. You could special teams terrible. We're 4 games in, man. I'm not trying to write off the season or anything, but in this 4-game sample, you have had to pull your goalie in more games than you have won so far this season. You have pulled your goalie in 2 separate games. You have 1 win.
Yeah,
and it wasn't the same goalie, as my roommate pointed out to me earlier.
It's funny.
awful, dude.
Talbot makes, and we talked before we got in the show, and we'll talk about this in segment 2. I don't think we blame this game on Talbot like at all, which I know some people are going to be like, oh, you're so quick to blame other goaltenders. But like, if you look at how a lot of these goals happen, like I struggle to see how any of this is Talbot's fault.
Man.
Right.
It's hard to be all on the goalie's case when almost all of these goals are with a man advantage for New York. Like that's awful penalties too. Like the penalties they are taking are ridiculously stupid and bad. Like it is not good.
Yeah, and then so like he makes 42 saves for a shutout, and then on the first shot of this game he allows a goal, and you're immediately like, okay, here we go. And again, I'm not blaming him for that goal. It's just like it was an immediate indicator that this was going to go a bad way.
Was also like 5 minutes into the game or whatever,
and a backdoor slam home. Anyways. We're going to go to a quick break, and when we return, I guess we'll just keep the conversation about Talbot and Lyon going, I guess. Talk about the defensive situation that continues to be.
For sure.
Talk about any notable performers we may have. I mean, there are a couple you could say. I know no one wants to hear positives
I have a lot
right
of Rangers.
Now. You have a lot of Rangers. We named 2 of them. But we'll talk about that and then, ask the question, when is it okay to worry? So stay tuned to Locked On Red Wings. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just have to pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times cash. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. Want to play PrizePicks alongside Drewski, Joe Budden, and MMA champ Sean O'Malley? You can now find community plays under the promo tab of the app to view entries from some of the biggest names in the PrizePicks community. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Download the app today and use Locked On NHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. Run your game. Segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. All right, Scotty. Cam Talbot, we were kind of talking about it off air. We talked about it before we went to break here. It's really hard. I know he allowed 5 goals against, so it's going to be really hard for some people to hear this, but I don't honestly put this game on him. You look at how the first goal was scored. Trocheck passes the puck through the crease. Backdoor goal, Artemi Panarin. Second goal, Artemi Panarin from a snapshot, failed block attempt by Ben Sherratt, goes top cheddar. Vincent Trocheck, deflected goal. Can't blame that on the goaltender. Artemi Panarin's hat-trick goal, backdoor goal. Victor Mancini, shot from the point. Oli Mata skates right across his eye line. Right as that puck gets to Mancini, he has no idea when that puck was shot. That's 5 goals where it's defensive breakdowns of some kind in front of him that led to those goals against. And they weren't leakers. Like, that's the thing, right? When we talked about Ville Husso, okay, bad rebound, right through his glove. Like, yeah, he was let down, but he also let some easier ones in. We talked about Alex Lyon, maybe positioned a little bit out of. But with, like, Cam Talbot, I'm, like, watching this, and 5 goals against, it's a bad look, but holy crap. Was it just like the Red Wings just giving them grade A opportunities?
Yeah, man. And like I said earlier, it was 3 of those 5 were also power play goals for the Rangers. Like it's really tough for like the only one that I think there's somewhat is that first one after the first goal of the game. I think maybe you want to see more from him there, but like it's really tough for me to put to put a ton of blame on the goaltender when the defense was as awful as it was all game, and the penalty kill was out there for 3 of the 5 goals against. Like it's a really tough situation you're putting your goalie in. Do you want to see more? I mean, in a perfect world, yeah, like obviously you do, but you're also not doing your goaltender any favors. And I think that probably transitions us into the conversation around the blue line. This is atrocious, man. Like this is, if you were to ask me one area of this team that I am this early in the season actually concerned, like won't figure it out or won't turn it around or like that. I don't care that it's a small sample size, like that I am legitimately worried about. It is the blue line more than anything else. Like the top 6, I have faith that that's so much talent in our top 6. I think offensively they're going to figure it out. I would like to think that the power play, being largely the same personnel group, is going to figure it out at some point. The penalty kill, largely the same personnel group. Hopefully we'll figure it out. Honestly, should even be better. They got more defensive over the summer. Goaltending, you have 3 choices. I mean, Lord willing, I hope one of them figures it out. Like the one that I am legitimately, like I'm not sure I really care that we're 4 games in. I am actually worried about this thing through 82 games is the blue line. They have looked like, I don't mean like figure of speech lost. I mean like literally lost on the ice through 4 games, and it is not good, man. It is watching this team play defense, and I should say that it's also the forwards, as we mention all the time. This isn't all just, the back line's fault, but it is wild to watch them in the defensive zone. It looks like nobody has any clue what's going on. Gustafsson had another brutal game.
Olimata too. Don't excuse
Correct.
Olimata. He had a brutal game.
Yeah, agreed.
One of the worst on the team.
Absolutely agreed. I think both of them. Like we're like 2 of the least effective players on the ice in this game. I cannot stress enough how concerned I am about the blue line.
Yeah,
and that we knew that going into the year. That's not like, oh wow, like what a crazy revelation. We knew that in July, and no additions were made to it.
Right. I mean, that third pair in this game, again, you put Gustafsson right back in the lineup, and they went right back to getting caved in. Edvinsson and Hull didn't have a great performance either. We talked about Ben Sherratt. I mean, again, the only defenseman on this team, and they even talked about in the broadcast in the third period, the only defenseman on this team that showed any kind of passion in this game was Moritz Seider, and go figure, yet again, he was one of your best players. Hockey stat cards I got away from using for a little while because they didn't incorporate quality of competition and all of that, but now they have. As well as like your deployments, and I think it displays a lot more accurately, and it displays a lot more closely to some of the advanced analytics we see alongside Natural Stat Trick. Both Natural Stat Trick and Hockey Stat Cards display Moritz Seider and Lucas Raymond as being the 2 players who showed up in this hockey game. Yeah. Moritz Seider obviously scored I almost said the one and only goal, but JT Compher got one in garbage time. But that goal early to make it 2-1 and early in the second period. But also, like, aside of that, you look at the statistics. Moritz Seider obviously had his goal. He had 4 shots in this game, 2 blocked shots, 5 hits, 1 takeaway. He was one of 2 defensemen who didn't have a single giveaway in this game, and he was the only one to have a takeaway. He had 27 shifts, and he played a total of 22 minutes in this game. He was the only defenseman who showed up, but he can't do it on his own. This defensive group, and again, you add the forwards in there too. In the defensive zone, I should say this team looks lost. They look lost in their own end. We talked about that. Like the one decent showing that they had in their own end, Scotty, was in the Nashville Predators game, and that was solely because they're doing a solid job at cutting down on the high dangerous attempts. But we talked about it in that game recap. While it was great that they blocked 30-plus shots and they kept Talbot like insulated down low, they still faced 42 shots and had to block another 30. And I understand there's a late game push element to that as well, but that was because
it's over
they
70 shot attempts, man.
Right. It's because they failed to get the puck from the corners after it was blocked or swept to the side. And then when they go to transition out, they can't make a clean transition out, and they have to then chip the puck out of the zone instead.
Well, that's why they just forecheck all the time, because it's the only time they can get a rush and actually have a shot at, like, it's wild to say, but like, not aggressive forecheck is something we've talked about in the entire Lalonde era, and how this team tends to play really good defense when they can consistently apply pressure for 60 minutes. So far in the first 4 games, when the forwards have like a really aggressive forecheck going, they'll get the puck, which will lead to a shot attempt, and that's it. Then the pucks. It's the other team gets the puck, they get possession, and then they chill in our defensive zone for half an hour. And it's like, okay, well, great, dude. We had the puck for 43 seconds in a period and had 6 shot attempts, And that's just like not a sustainable way to play hockey
It goes
at
back.
all. And like, that's the most Captain Obvious statement ever, I know, but like, it is it's an eyesore to watch this team try and score at the moment.
It goes to retrievals on both ends, right? Like you get hemmed in because you can't retrieve the puck in your own corner and you can't transition up the ice to get out of the zone. But then you don't have you can't successfully break the puck in. So then you either try to A, dump and chase and you can't retrieve the puck and so it comes back the other way. Or B, you try to score off the rush, get one shot off, then can't retrieve the puck in the corner to a stat. Like they cannot set up in the offensive zone.
And when
they
the
come
other
out
team
hot.
When the other team does set up in our zone, in the wing zone, they don't know what to do. Like legitimately, they're like, well, we can't forecheck here. Like, what's the plan? There is no plan. It is. I know that you started off the show by saying, like, we're gonna try to not overreact. It's 4 games in, a lot can change. We saw a lot of nebs and flows and ups and downs with this team last season. We've seen this team be really cold and then turn it around. We'll see what happens. I'm really not trying to say like the season is over, whatever. It's just, it is mind-boggling how predictable and brutal the issues on the team 4 games in look.
Well, and that's exactly it. I don't think it's overreacting to point out trends that we've seen. Like, that's all we're doing. It's 4 games in, and we've noticed the same trends in every game. Soft defensive zone coverage in your own end and brutal special teams.
Yeah.
Like, that's really, at the end of the day, what's really... Like, I have full confidence the offense is going to find its stride, and it will figure itself out. But one of this team's problems last year was in their own end, and I'm scared it's going to be in their own end again.
Right. No,
like, it needs to get better.
Completely agree.
All right. Like you said, there's 81 games. No, there's not. How's math work? 79 games left. I think, whatever. Yeah, there's 4 games played now. 4. Sorry, I thought 3 in my head. You're right. 78 games left. So there's a lot of time to figure it out, but they got to figure it out quickly because you can't win a Stanley Cup in October, but you can sure as hell lose one in October. Just ask the Ottawa Senators every single year.
Yeah, especially in this division. Yeah, man.
Right.
You can completely piss away a season in October.
All right, we're going to head to a quick break. When we return, Scotty, I want to talk about just kind of what we were talking about there. Like, when is it okay to worry? And I do want to bring up Lalonde. And then we can talk about the Preds on Saturday. We've already faced that team. And if there's any other notable performers we're maybe not talking about, stay tuned to Locked On Red Wings. Got to talk to you guys today about FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Also need to talk to you guys today about Game Time. They got this handy new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Curation makes it easier to save on sports, comedy, concerts, theater, and so much more with Game Time Picks. And you have that all-in pricing toggle that you can turn on. And if you do, it'll show the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. Get the panoramic view of your seat before you buy with Seat Views, and use Game Time's ticket coverage so that you have the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKDOWNNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Segment 3, Locked On Red Wings podcast. All right, Scotty. 4 games in. Red Wings are 1-3. They've had 2 absolute stinkers. 2 games where they've played decently. Still lost one of those. Still saw the cracks in the one they did win. But there's still, as we did the math and found out, 78 games left to be played in this season.
You did the math.
I'm pretty sure you were confused too. But Scotty, at what point is it all right to worry about how this team is playing on the ice? Are we overreacting, worrying this early, Or do we need to wait longer? Like, what is the mindset here?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. Like, I don't want to tell somebody else how to like be a fan or how to react to certain situations. It's like, for me, I'm at a place where I kind of, I guess, elaborated to it there before the break. Like, I am not saying the sky is falling on the season yet. 4 games in, I think that would be a little premature. I do think it is fair to something that, like, the defense is something that we talked about the second the season ended last year, right? We talked about this in April. We were like, okay, need to address defense this year. Go through the whole summer. We address defensive forwards. We don't address the blue line really whatsoever. And more and more time goes, and there's still nothing. And I remember saying, if nothing changes on the blue line, I would consider that a massive disappointment. I remember saying that back, and I said it with goaltending too, back in April, right? And like, here we are. So for me, I don't think the season is over 4 games in. I don't think it's impossible for them to turn it around. They've played really good teams, presumably playoff contending, if not just straight up playoff teams in every game. Say what?
To Stanley Cup contenders. I mean,
correct.
That's what the Rangers
are.
are.
President's Trophy winners, right. So far this season, I think that's all important to remember. And I really want to stress all of those points. I do think something like, when it comes to the blue line, something that we were everybody in the fan base was so in unison and lockstep and in agreement on. You can't get 2 people to agree what color the sky is these days, but like we all agreed that like the blue line needed to be addressed, and it just wasn't. And I think that is something for me. Like, I am legitimately concerned about that. I do think it's acceptable to worry about something that we had serious reservations about early in the year. Not saying they can't turn it around. Not saying it's just completely written off. But like that's how I'm kind of viewing it. Like, individual pieces and aspects of the team. Like, the offense hasn't really got going. I'm not that worried about the offense. I think the top 6 is too talented for it to lay a stinker. Same with the the power play. Goodness. But I think there are certain aspects that were predictable that everyone thought was going to struggle going into the year, and they have, and that's just negative reinforcement, and here we are.
Yeah, I think as far as the offense goes, I mean, we got 2 goals out of Larkin in 4 games, one of which being an empty netter, so keep that in mind. You got 2 goals out of Cat, just in Cat fashion. It was in 1 game, and then nothing in the last 3. In fact, he was pretty bad in a couple of those games. I know in this one he missed the wide open net, but he was bad in other areas. You got 2 goals out of JT Compher. I think JT Compher has been pretty freaking consistent. I've actually liked what I've seen out of Compher for the most part. But, I mean, where Raymond had a good game. He was one of the few players who played well against the Rangers in the second game here, but couldn't find the back of the net. He had like 5 shots. Patrick Kane hasn't done much on the ice. As much as I love me some Patrick Kane offense, been invisible.
He had
Tarasenko, I mean,
4 shots and a couple of good passes on the power play himself.
It's just, we need those guys to start scoring goals if this offense is going to have a chance at surviving. And I know they will, but it would be nice if fewer of them were starting the season cold at the same time than are. Defensively, you're right. Like, it's just kind of like, that's something we had reservations about. So I think you're spot on when you say, I think it's appropriate to worry about the defense, the defensive structure of this team, because we talked about it. They have 8 defense, and only 2 of which we had any sort of confidence in. That'd be Moert, Seider, and Simon Edvinsson.
We're running 12-8-3, and we're giving up more goals than almost anybody. That's not good, man. The roster is constructed 12-8-3, and goals allowed is the biggest issue this team faces. That is not okay. And
they're -6 on the year now.
Yeah, and that's again, like I said earlier, man. They have pulled their goalie in more games than they've won so far, 4 games in. So I think that it's pretty clear that is a big issue. I'm a lot
Well,
more calmed down now. I was really fired up there for a while. I am.
No, you should be allowed to be mad. That was an awful game. They lost this
Yeah,
game the
no,
same
it
reasons
was.
they
That
lost
was-
the last game. They failed to adjust. It's
was
stupid.
terrible.
Which brings me to my next point. Like, I am a big Derek Lalonde defender. I have been. I always liked the concept of the idea of Derek Lalonde's plan.
Concept of the idea.
Yeah, of Derek Lalonde's plan, but it just has never, it's really never materialized on the ice, right? He was a defensive first head coach. Well, what is the thing that this team stinks at the most? I understand defensively, this roster is not great. And we can talk about, Yzerman and the pro scouting is not completely, absolved of guilt here either, because you've assembled a defensive core of all mid-tier defensemen outside of your number one defenseman and potentially Simon Edvinsson. But also, like, your assistant coaches, because your special teams is brutal. Your defense is brutal. Your offense is brutal. Like, the assistant coaches play a huge role in that, too. As much of a defender of Derek Lalonde as I am, we're in year 3, and the defense is still showing no signs of being a competent team defense. When is it appropriate to start going, okay, we got to turn the heat up on this guy? I tweeted it out emotionally during the game that if I was Newsy, I'd be sweating right now because your team's getting smashed in the third of fourth games, and the one game you did when you still gave up 42 shots. But it's like, as much of a defender as him I am, with as nice of a locker room guy he is, and I feel like the heat's going to be getting on him soon, because when teams want to salvage their season, they fire their coaches early if they get out to slow starts, and this is a tough schedule to start the season.
Yeah, so it's now. It's the answer to your question is now, and the reason why is something we talked about back in July, man, and that's this team in free agency brought in players to explicitly fill and fit this system. They brought in defensive. They let a ton of goals walk out the door. We talked about this a lot over the summer. They let a lot of depth scoring walk out the door this summer and replace them with defensive-minded forwards, and the defense is atrocious. So it's now. I'm not saying he's going to get canned tomorrow. They're going to see how, the first couple of months play out, but it is now. If you're a defensive-minded, like low-event hockey team, and all that's being put on the ice is your own team has low events and you give up a ton of events, that's the system not working. And the players that were brought in were specifically meant to address and fill and fit that system. So yeah, I think it's absolutely, it's not game 4, but like it's this season for sure.
Yeah, like there were a few players they added, right, to fit that system. Tyler Mott being like number 1, right, when we talk about defensive responsible forwards. But like also you signed Vladimir Tarasenko, you traded for Alex DeBrincat, you signed Patrick Kane, you signed Ghost last year.
Yeah, I meant more this summer. Last summer was definitely not.
I know what you mean, but like you also constructed a roster full of players, and this is where I'm saying, like, as much as I love Yzerman, I think he's done a nice job, this is where I feel like he's not completely absolved of guilt. Like, you hire a coach who wants to build a defensive-minded roster, and then you fill the roster with guys who are primarily offensive-minded. This is the same thing we talked about last year. And, like, going into the offseason, we're like, okay, well, let's reassure it. Well, you brought back Kane, which we were a fan of. You signed Tarasenko, which we were a fan of because it replaced some of the goals that walked out the door. But, like, Gustafsson, everyone touted as being a more defensively responsible, like, Ghost light. Well, he has not been that. He's just as sheltered, if not more than Ghost, but been defensively worse while not providing the offense.
You want to talk about a change being made this early? I want Mo Seider on power play 1 yesterday. I don't need to see Gustafsson on power play 1 ever again. I'm good.
Like, I don't know. It's year 3. So if he gets out to a putrid start, he could be fired very fast.
It's this year, man. Yeah, it's this year.
Like, and this isn't me calling for his head. This isn't me rooting for his failure, because I want him to succeed, because his success obviously is the Red Wings' success.
Yeah.
But in most coaches, by year 3, if they haven't figured it out, they're gone. And if we saw it last year, how many coaches got fired early in the season because the teams got off the slow start and GMs wanted to save the season?
One of them made the cup.
One of them made the cup in the Edmonton Oilers. Like, that change in voice is really sometimes the spark this team needs. And it sucks that I'm having this conversation on the podcast because I want Derek Lalonde to succeed because I think he is a great guy. And I think that he was clearly a great assistant coach. But this system so far through 4 games and through 82 games last year wasn't working. They outscored their problems last year. This year, they're not outscoring their problems. We knew the shooting was going to regress. I don't think it's going to regress this much all season long. I think it's going to bounce back to some degree, and they're going to be competitive. But like, if you can't figure it out on the ice for the system to be successful the way you want it to be, then what other choice is left?
Agreed. Predators
Saturday. I mean, not really much to preview. We just played that game.
Yeah, the Preds have been terrible this year. I don't think they have a win yet.
Well, that makes me feel a little better. So it's so funny. What is this scheduling? Preds, Rangers, Rangers, Preds for 4 of the first 5 games.
Awesome, man. Yeah, they do not. They're 0-4. They do not have a win yet on the season. They just lost to the Oilers, who also have got off to a really slow start. So
you didn't see it, but I accidentally lowered my chair. I was trying to mess with the back, and I accidentally lowered it, so I'm shorter now. All right, we'll be back with a new episode on Monday. Hopefully, talking about a win, because God, my mental state needs it, man.
Yeah, I would really like to not be so doom and gloom and talk about some optimistic parts of this team. So.
And this is us trying to not just us trying to be as optimistic as possible.
An attempt was made to chill before, to be calm this episode. Yeah.
Oh man. Same time, same place. It's your team.
Every day. We ball.